I really think in the next 5 years, the ability to build your own automations, build your own decision support tools is going to be really important. There's a lot of innovation and invention that you can do as a financial analyst, finance manager, because of your deep understanding of how your business works and now the technology that's available to you.
Hey, Stephen, thanks so much for joining us today for Finance Unscripted podcast. Super excited to have you. We've known each other for some time, and I was super excited about asking a few questions about your career and lots of interesting things to unpack. So very excited. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. I'm excited to join you, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, just Stephen, maybe just the one question to start with. So you had an incredible run at the companies like Amazon, leading FP&A function in one of the departments there in Amazon, and then just going to the hyper growth scale ups like Flexport, and now leading the finance function at Podimo. I'm curious, like that journey, like how has it shaped you as an operating CFO? What are the key things that you learned through this journey that you are applying as a CFO today?
Yeah, good question. I think of each role and each role kind of inside of a company, you're getting experience and you're gaining skill acquisition. Fortunate to have kind of a diversity of different experience. And I'd say even before like my Amazon days, I spent time as a GM of a laboratory, like a hospital laboratory. And even when I started my career at UPS, I got to drive a package car, which I still contend is maybe the most fun job I've ever had. But through each one, like, right, you're getting tested, you're seeing the way your peers and the leadership teams around you operate, and you kind of building that tool set as you go. I think, I look back at, call it Amazon, with still very hyper growth, but a much more well-oiled machine, an interesting culture that really drives excellence and accountability, and to some extent, like discipline in data and discipline in decision making with a lot of clarity. And then taking that into a hyper growth, in Flexport and Podimo, it helps you think about the business more holistically. It helps you think about how in those environments you can really find the right balance of risk appetite in execution, and as well as be able to handle all the different external factors that come your way, or even internal dysfunction and function. You had an opportunity to see it and experience it in the past, and it just makes you more equipped to handle those, and it makes those challenges feel less intimidating and something you have confidence in that you can handle.
Yeah, so many interesting things to unpack there. So I'm so excited to jump in. Maybe one thing I wanted to start with is a little bit with your personal story. So you moved from Portland to Amsterdam, now to Copenhagen. Can you share a little bit how you ended up in finance, what drove those decisions to you, and also a little bit that journey traveling through sort of like different parts of the world, how you made decisions to make those moves?
Going back to like why I got into finance, part of it was just pragmatic. I had a young family, and I was like, I don't have the luxury of spending a lot of my college years to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, I got to make some money, and I have to find something interesting enough. And it was kind of engineering or finance. And I felt that just had a disposition that accounting, which is kind of funny to say, kind of connected with me. The concept of logic and the if-thens that really make up how you work through accounting processes just resonated. And then I was fortunate enough, my first role, I kind of worked at UPS through college, and had the opportunity to just step directly into finance. I always thought I'd go like the CPA route, but then when I got into operational finance and got to be part of running and driving a business, it really, really was exciting. And then I also had the opportunity to get into a leadership role relatively early in my career, which I found like the people management and the process management of having that responsibility to be really exciting. And so that's kind of how I ended up in finance. And in each role, I found a good amount of excitement and joy in playing that role within the organization. And then as far as like moves, I think one of the kind of guiding principles I have is, you want to make the most out of life. And I really enjoy experiencing new things, new places. A bit of a nomad in a way, but it's kind of always putting yourself in the position to have opportunity. And then when those opportunities come, and especially the more position you are, you're going to get more and more opportunities that run across your desk that are in front of you. Kind of always been willing to, hey, if it means moving to go do something I think is going to be fun, exciting, or progress my career, I'm going to do it. And then I would say my Amazon time, I had the opportunity to travel globally quite a bit, see different places, and I was pretty convicted that I think I want to move overseas, do something. I thought it would be a year or two, maybe a special assignment. That's kind of how the Flexport opportunity in Amsterdam came, but I really enjoyed it. So I said, time to start looking for something in Europe, in an environment that I like, in a new culture. And then the Podimo opportunity came, which is an incredibly exciting business, incredibly well positioned, and it was too good of an opportunity to not take. And that meant moving to Copenhagen, but it was also exciting because new place, new culture, and fun kind of opportunity to explore some new things.
It's amazing. And so you had experience on both sides of the Atlantic, and curious sort of that experiencing different type of companies, experiencing different cultures as well, in the way, not just cultures inside the company, but also cultures, different countries. Curious, do you think that makes all of this experience makes you or anyone else stronger as a CFO? So what are the maybe like specific elements of the job where you get better because you have a different perspective and the different businesses?
Yeah. I think one thing that became like super clear to me in the opportunity to work in different places is like we're all human, and like that common denominator is so strong. We're all similarly motivated by the same thing. We all expect a certain amount of justice and decency, which really makes people management fun and exciting, in being the stewards of that in the leadership position. And then you layer on top of that, I call it like maybe the 20%, which are these cultural differences. And what that variation helps you do is understand how to connect with people's motivation, understand how to build high performing organizations by accepting and appreciating those like individual differences, and whether those are like individual people or call it like the organization binds them together. You're better at that. Like, I don't want to dehumanize it, but like that pattern recognition and that kind of feedback loop to yourself becomes relatively intuitive. The more intuitive it becomes, the more authentic it is to lead people.
Speaking of culture, you mentioned that a little bit. Amazon has a very strong culture, and you mentioned this a few minutes ago as well. Would love to understand how you think that Amazon culture shaped you as a leader. Like, what are the things from that culture you were trying to maybe instill in your experience at the Flexport and doing now in Podimo as well?
One thing I really appreciate overarching about Amazon is the providence of its culture. It's like, what you're getting. It's super transparent. Why it can be very difficult for some, and I think it's difficult for everybody at some time. What you're getting. It really does, articulated as leadership principles, but they are through and through the organization. It really values that the company lives by. I think some other things about the Amazon culture that I'll take with me is the results-driven nature, the high accountability, and high velocity of that culture. The other big piece is it's very much like you're on your own to some extent. Like, you must create your opportunity. You must create your own results. Folks aren't there to help you. You're there to drive your own career and drive your own results within it. And I really enjoyed that piece about it. Once you really understood that it was a bit more autonomous, if you will, to your outcomes. I found it super, super valuable. And I think that's, especially as you get further up the leadership chain, the need to be self-driven and to hold yourself accountable towards driving results, and knowing that, if you need help, you got to go ask for it. You got to go get it. Is super valuable. Really creates this catalyst of being a self-starter, if you will, and solving your own problems, um, and just knowing that no one's coming to save you. You gotta do it yourself. And I found that, like, especially as I jumped into a CFO role, super valuable. So I'm not for anyone to figure something out for me. I know I got to go do it. If I need help, I got to go seek out that help and get the team to rally around a certain objective.
Anything you had to learn from Amazon culture to be effective?
Yeah, I think a couple of things to unlearn is you got to be willing to make more trade-offs in a lot of places, especially when you're in smaller organizations. You can't optimize your own kind of silo, your own organization, your own department, and expect the whole system to work well. You got to be willing to make some sacrifices in prioritization or how you spend your energy, where you should drop into the business to help drive change. I think that was one. In Amazon, you could very much stay in your lane and execute in your lane, and you were gonna be successful. And you really can't do that as much in small organizations. The other is, we say at Podimo, and I really enjoy this about the culture. It's like no sharp elbows. You got to win as a team. And winning as a team is more valuable and important than winning as an individual. And when your culture supports that, you're not giving as much away when you're an individual. Everyone wins together and everyone gets rewarded together, which is something that necessarily didn't happen as often at Amazon.
When you're in a scale up like Flexport, you capital constraint, and then you're trying to balance profitability with the growth. So how has your playbook changed in this new inputs, new environment? So what you and finance team overall were doing, like how is it different compared to Amazon?
There's really two key advantages to Amazon. One is fast generation, right? Like, it does feel when you're in that environment, you have an infinite. But the other is it has like, you have so many eyes on the product, your probability of success is much higher, and all of that, you're building on such a big base. And then when you go for growth, you have two advantages. One is you have to maintain, like, you can only do so many things that you decide to do have to be the right things. And early in my Flexport, coming off of a really large cash, we fell into that trap, trying to do too many things, losing focus, and kind of failed in execution of those things. And in that hyper growth, we do have to pick the few things that you do well, get you to that next stage, through that gate. And you have to make sure you execute. Time matters a lot more for growth as well. Amazon, something could not resonate, could fail, and you kind of must find it. And you have less opportunity to really drive execution. And you can't have as many both. And so that requires a bit of like execution. As a finance team, some of the mandates are really raising the bar for how you evaluate investments, whether that's like product investment, content investments, media business. And then really important is making sure you have the right KPI. You've stated things that you can quickly correct and pivot. And then also make sure, the accountable groups are delivering on time and bring to the right level, and that everyone's staying. And I think another key function of the finance is making sure all those leadership maintain attention on those investments, those bets that you're making. It's super critical to keep that leadership team really focused on the most important. It's easy in time by the new or the opportunistic in those trade-offs. Diversions of attention have to be really well understood, and you really want to methodically to make sure they're worth it.
Follow-up question. So basically focus is important, and especially in capital constrained business where every bet matters a lot and can make a huge difference to the trajectory of the company. What is the role of the finance team there? So how do you partner with the rest of the leadership, and how does finance team basically just impact on understanding, first of all, are we actually moving in the right direction? Are we moving with the right velocity there? Curious, sort of like if you had any learnings on Flexport side of the things, like what was the role? Has it evolved over the time as well?
One of the things besides just putting pen to paper and quantifying, what the spend is, what the return is on that spend, is really making the teams focus and having a lot of clarity of thought on why they want to build something and what they think the return on that's going to be, and the value that creates in the business. I've always thought of finance as really being like the translators of business into what we're all trying to do, which is make money. Especially my Amazon experience, like the storytelling of the business plan is extremely important, and lays that foundation to how you then operationalize and execute on those strategies. And I think the finance team, when we're building plans, when we're helping develop business cases, it really should be the one helping drive that clarity of thought, making things super transparent. And also, I think one of the tools I always take with me from Amazon is this relentless business review, metrics review. And that's where the finance team can, work with partners, whether I call it business intelligence teams are part of the finance team, but instrumenting those metrics, getting alignment that everyone really knows, those, understands what those mean, how they're measured, and then just relentlessly reviewing that, holding the organization accountable, and then facilitating the corrective action process. Being that, I like to think of us as like a really accountability mechanism within an organism. And I find that the finance team's place in doing that, and then being true partners in how you course correct, how you develop corrective action plans to make sure the investment and decisions, those projects, those products you're building, features stay on track. And then at any time, right, you have to, someone's got to be willing to say, like, this isn't working. The other benefit of the finance team, we're a little bit of neutral arbiters in the business, and we should feel empowered to hold our hands up and be like, I don't think this is working, or maybe this is not going to work, guys. We really have to take some time and reevaluate where we're at.
It's actually interesting. So we discussed a little bit about the culture and impact of that to the team. We discussed about the role that finance team is playing. One sort of logical topic to discuss next is skill set. So especially now in your new role, you're completely responsible for the entire finance team. So in order to get the most potential out of the finance team to be like a true partner and do many of the things that we discussed, what kind of skill set you need for the team? What kind of, how do you think about basically in the startup or scale up in your case? What are the key roles that are important, and how do you think the skill set also evolve over the time as well as the company gets larger?
I think part of it is, I call it like skill and will. Earlier on in the growth stage, people have to come with this will that they want to be builders. They want to tackle problems that are outside of domain outside of their lane. And so I think that's a big piece when you're recruiting for folks early on. As the company grows, you can become more specialist. Plus, you need more specialists with deep domain knowledge. Early on, though, you want people who are just super curious and hungry to learn, and then hungry to solve problems where they come up in the business. I think that when I look at like a finance team, even like your accounting staff has to think of themselves as part of their job as a builder, and then part of their job as an executor. They're still got to do the work at a high level day in and day out. And then they also have to think about how I participate in building scalable processes so that when the company's 2, 3, 4 times, you're iteratively building a more hardened function. And then on the finance side, curiosity and desire to learn the business. I really feel strongly that the best finance partners, FP&A partners, are really well versed in the business and can explain it just as well as the product owner in their domain or the GM that's running a region. That's going to help them be the right translator. It's going to help them build tools that help those leaders better understand their business and what decisions need to be made. I think the big differentiator that I find in that FP&A team is they're really good at spotting where the risk and opportunity is and can go that next layer deeper. So here's what I think we should do about it. The other thing I would say is like, you got to be technically talented. You have to understand the technology now, how the function has evolved. It's a mandate that you have to be able to drive automation. You have to free up a lot of your time to make these strategic decisions by building scalable automated processes, and being a technically inclined staff is super important.
Yeah. Speaking of automation, how do you think that your skill set of people inside your team will change over the next 5 years? Obviously, we are living in this absolutely phenomenal age of the intelligence where at least there's a big promise that a lot of things will be automated. But let's just imagine that it happens. Like, how do you think about the skill set is changing? What type of roles would be more in demand in your team? And especially sort of one angle of that is sort of like as a finance professional, when I think about sort of the future, like how should I prepare myself to be more relevant for the needs of 5 years from now?
It's really difficult to predict how advanced we'll be, but I think the advice that I'd give to anybody kind of early in their kind of finance journey is you have to understand the technology and you have to be technically inclined, because we're not going to be in this environment where you magically get fed like these agents that work without a need to understand how they work or how you modify them or how you decompose them to understand the process. I really think in the next 5 years, the ability to build your own automations, build your own decision support tools is going to be really important. There's a lot of innovation and invention that you can do as a financial analyst, finance manager, because of your deep understanding of how your business works. And now the technology that's available to you. There's going to be systems that are served really well, and they're going to be able to do like 80% of the benefit, but there's a big 20% out there that has a finance profession you're going to have to invent yourself.
What are the workflows do you think will be automated first?
Information feed, agents that can help go get the information you need, can improve the quality of your data. I think those are very kind of ripe for automation now. And then, anything that's repeatable, it's the stuff none of us like doing anyway. which are very formulaic, that's going to come super quick, right? Um, and and then beyond that, it's going to be the stuff that makes you more efficient. It's going to be that speed of reporting. It's going to be that high level variance analysis, that flex analysis. You're going to be able to do that in a very automated way, and that's going to free you up to be more of that accountability partner into this drive strategy. I think that each business has interesting problems that a really solid professional now is going to need to be able to automate and build their own tools. And we're going to have the technology to do that super quick.
I know that you are just joined Podimo a few months ago and probably still figuring out the strategy in terms of the overall the function and then the tech stack. But curious, sort of like if you already have any thoughts on sort of like what is the tech stack that you're using today, anything which you would like to change in the future, and how do you use AI inside your team today?
Just getting into it, right? And I would say, like any startup, especially one of the type of growth, a lot of the finance automation, the function gets a little bit neglected because you're just growing so fast. So you're going to put your resources to that because that's how you win. And now Podimo is getting to the stage where we got to grow up as a finance function, which is really fun to be able to build up. The first place to go for automation where there's more tried and true technology and you have a good idea of what companies are going to be around is getting that accounting automation aided by AI in place. It's a lot of manual work. It's a lot of variation exists in hours. But at the same time, you have really hardened systems that feed the data around it because that's just an important piece. And then using AI, SaaS, and software to help reduce defects and automate some of the work that's being done manually. The other place I get really excited is around forecasting, whether it's cash or forecasting the business. It's such a hard problem to solve because you have so much data coming in from so many places. And using AI and agents to help improve the fidelity of information flow is a great place that the technology is ready now. I think when I prioritize automation in system hardness, when in your accounting and control functions, it's just imperative that you have reliable, trusted systems. And then on the finance side, it gives you the opportunity to be more inventive, take more risks, experiment more, because you have a lot more autonomy to do the things the way you want. And your risk tolerance is a little bit higher there. So I think that's that's the space that seems really fun to me.
I was on a panel with a CFO of a public company recently, and there was like a very interesting point brought up where people tend to think about finance as like zero tolerance for errors, but in fact, even in accounting, you just need to be directionally right. So you need to get sort of like all the material right. So yet a lot of teams are very risk averse, and before figuring out an answer 100%, so like nothing is moving. I'm just curious, sort of like, how do you think about that, and if there is anything that you do in your team to really instill the culture of innovation and trying the things as well, if you think that finance is actually sort of like a right place to do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the right place to do it. The key is like on the edges. Like you need the hardened system in the middle. It needs to be well understood, auditable, and then around the edges, you have a lot of autonomy to invent and experiment. And I think it's even starting with the small stuff. getting teams to think about what's possible, whether that's, experimenting with an agent that automates communication with your management team on providing expense reports. Super simple. Just follow up that always needs to be done. And if you can figure out how to make that work, it starts to shift the way you think about other work that you're doing. And I think within the finance function, you're always making judgment calls. You're just synthesizing information from your business partners, and you're determining what the right number to put in that spreadsheet. And that's in and of itself, kind of a high decision kind of point. It relies on the financial analyst and the business partners kind of collective experience to come up with some. When you think about like, all right, how can I make this decision better? Experiment with different ways to work through that logic, assisted by AI. See how well it does at synthesizing a bunch of information and giving you a better jumping off point, or something triangulate with, especially within the finance team. In that FP&A function, business partnering, there's some really fun experiments you can do. Getting the team to do something, start somewhere, whether it's a hackathon or kind of a special project where they're paired with, an engineer, see what they can invent really quickly, and then get that mind shift into a world that's possible that maybe you weren't thinking about a year ago.
Maybe shifting the gears a little bit. One topic I was very curious to get your thoughts on, basically, given you work on both sides of the Atlantic and have seen and been part of the very innovative companies like Amazon in US. Flexport is mostly, I consider, US company as well, even though you spent quite a bit of time here in Europe. Now you are with a company with headquarters in Europe as well. So there's lots of talks around innovation in Europe and how Europe can catch up. Now you've seen both sides. What do you think is missing? What do you think European companies should do more to basically produce the same level of output and innovation compared to colleagues in the US?
I think one is, access to big talent pools. It's absolutely essential that you can access the talent that you need. And I think that's one thing the US has done historically well at is, it attracts the best talent from around the world. And I think Europe's got to figure out a way to do that as well. And I think some countries have done better than others. Unlocking different ways to attract that talent is going to be super important. I think the other is, it's capital, and building that VC flywheel can be extremely difficult because you got to get supply, and then you have to work through those pipelines of results. I think one thing I've observed is that in like the Series A seed phase, there's a lot of companies. Europe's got to figure out how to unlock success from that Series A to that Series C, Series D. We're in a different capital environment now than we were, call it like during the pandemic. Now interest rates are more expensive. The formula has changed. But those companies need a certain amount of capital to be successful. And you are trading growth in a lot of cases. But when all the metrics are there, when all the signals are there, you have to be willing to keep betting and help get those companies past that really difficult stage of pre-profitability, but still showing great signals of growth and improvement in unit economics. And don't kind of starve those companies to death where someone else catches up or they can't get to that critical mass that helps them scale.
Sometimes people saying that people in Europe should just work harder. Is that a myth?
That's a complete myth. Yeah, I've found in my experience here, people are equally committed, work exceptionally hard, extremely driven, and very talented. Like there's, I don't think it's a, a talent gap in the individual or a motivation gap. It's a scale problem. It's how do you access all that talent? How do you bring them together?
Stephen, maybe just to wrap things up, wanted to do quick rapid fire questions to you. The first one,
Yeah.
what is the career decision you're very proud that felt, and others maybe felt that was reckless at the time?
Actually, I think one of the decisions I made that was a bigger leap is I took a job as a GM of this hospital laboratory, working in nonprofit healthcare in the US. And everyone's like, that's such a slow moving bureaucratic business. Why would you want to be there? And it was also like way above my skis. Yeah, like 450 plus people reporting to me in a industry I wasn't really very familiar with. Uh, and so it was a big leap, but I think it paid off really well. I learned a ton in that role, and really helped me fully grasp what it meant to be a GM and have to, you don't get to leave at the end of the day till every customer gets their lab result, gets what they need, and that having that weight on you. You can't just be the finance guy who gives a bunch of suggestions and then bounces out at 6. You have to solve the problems. There's no leaving until it's done, and that was just a really valuable experience, and I think really helped shape me as an operator today.
What finance skills will matter the most in 2030?
I think it's driving execution. Machines will give us a lot of information. They'll do a lot of the work for us, but at the end of the day, you gotta deliver and execute. And I think that the finance team is going to be essential in distilling strategy and then holding organizations accountable to deliver and get those returns that they promise. It's going to be an exciting time. You're going to have to be much more of a well-rounded strategy individual than you have to now, because that's going to be primarily where you're going to add value.
What is one blog, podcast, or book every CFO should steal from you? Something you would recommend?
I really enjoy the newsletter, Secret CFO. He's got great insights, super practical, and it's a really interesting community. And then I'd say a great book is Let My People Go Surfing by the founder of Patagonia. Really, his customer obsession and connecting that with what he really loves to do and motivating people and yourself, and really doing something really cool that is such a customer obsessed individual and connected with how he relates to his customer, and doing something that he loves. Is a great business lesson.
Thanks for sharing that. I never read this book, so I'm definitely adding it to my list. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. Fantastic insights. Hopefully, will be very helpful for the community. And see you at some point somewhere in Copenhagen or maybe in Amsterdam if you come back. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be back soon. Thanks, Albert.